Greetings, mortals. It is I, Remortis, coming at you with another guide to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. This time going over a comprehensive look at the warrior archetype. These are your tanks or your frontline DPS. In this particular guide, we'll be going over what the warrior can do and the various builds we can do with it. This guide will include 4 builds, 2 for each of your early warriors that you get as companions, and then 2 builds for your rogue trader if you would like to do each of those companions' jobs a little bit better. So first, before we get into each of the warrior builds, let's go ahead and look at their abilities. So starting off at level 1, we get the ability Charge. Warrior will move in a straight line and launches a melee attack against any target in the warrior's path. This attack does not count towards your limit, and you must be at least 2 cells away from the target in order to charge. You can also charge past the unit too. If you angle it correctly, you can still hit them from behind. So Charge is a pretty solid ability. You can use it as a movement tool as well as an extra attack tool. The next ability we get automatically is called Endure. Until the warrior's next turn, all incoming damage is reduced by your toughness bonus, and the warrior also gains that same bonus into temporary health. But before we keep moving on further, let's go ahead and check out what stats a warrior desires. So warrior's main stats are toughness, strength, and weapon skill for tanks, and if you are a DPS warrior, you're going to want to go with agility, weapon skill, and then strength. As the warrior class overall is divided by these 2 different archetypes that they'll turn into later. As you can see here, we can with Abelard, you'll tend to go with the Vanguard route, which is a very tanky class, or you might go with the Assassin route, which is a very mobile, damaging character. And there's also the Arc Militant, which I will probably go over in another guide, but not this one. This is more of a hybrid class for marksmen and warriors, so you can do a little bit of melee and range into combat. But for the purpose of this guide, we'll be going over the 2 warrior builds to go towards the Vanguard route and the Assassin route. Alright, so let's get back into it. Let's cover the other abilities before we move forward. So, obviously we start off with Endure, no matter which way you go about it. And next, we have the ability called Sworn Enemy. The warrior marks a target, gaining extra percentage of armor based on your toughness bonus, and you also deal extra damage based on your strength against that target. And if the target attacks the warrior during this round, the warrior will gain additional AP. Pretty good ability. Use this on elite mobs or bosses. Hopefully you survive the boss attack though. On higher difficulties, your warriors will have a harder time surviving, at least until you get certain talents and gear online. Next we have Reckless Strike. This is more of a DPS build, but you can do some interesting things with it as tanks as well. Anyways, it reads that warrior's next melee attack will gain more armor penetration and damage based on your strength, and will ignore their parry based on your weapon skill. Any enemy who survives this attack will be able to attack the warrior in return, including creatures with ranged weapons, which can combo later with the Vanguard, as you get lots of opportunities for counter-attacking. So even if they hit you, you can hit them right back again, hopefully killing them. It's a really cool ability. Depending on your build, I wouldn't pick this up early. If you want to just be a pure DPS character, you might want to grab this. Otherwise, for the tanky character, you'll probably grab this later, probably in exemplar levels. Next, we have Forceful Strike. Warrior gathers all their strength for a crushing attack. Their next melee attack pushes the target away. The distance of that push is equal to your strength, and then they also will collide into other objects. They'll take extra damage, and potentially fall prone. This is a great ability for any warrior, really, as it will provide a little bit of crowd control, and it will also combo off of your sweeping attacks, since it's your next attack. Most melee weapons have 2 different styles of attacks, whether it's a single target or an AoE sweep, and you can use this with that and knock every enemy back near you. Great ability. Then we have Taunting Scream. The warrior screams at their enemies to draw their attention and becomes a priority target to any enemy who fails a willpower check. If you decide to be a tank and want to really lean into the taunting things, this is what you want to go with. And then we also have Breakthrough. This is more of a DPS ability, as when you use this ability, you'll gain the Slice ability, which has a few charges based on your agility bonus, And Slice can't be used in the same turn as Charge. It teleports you to the other side of a target as you dash through them and hurt them. You'll deal 50% reduced damage, but there's other ways to increase this damage, which we'll get into in a moment. It's a pretty cool ability. It's more for your people that are trying to dodge around and stuff. This is really good for assassins later, and we'll get into why that is. But for now, let's cover Abelard. So Abelard is essentially going to be your main tank in most of your playthroughs, unless you decide to make your rogue trader be better than him. But overall, you won't be too disappointed with Abelard. He's your right-hand man, and he will defend everybody. So those are your first 3 levels. You got Charge, and you get Endure. But as for what skills you want to go with, most people will tend to pick up Athletics on Abelard, so that'll help you move debris, or climb trees, or make jumps, and such like that. It's a very crucial skill to use on the overall maps. Now let's get into what talents we want to pick up on Abelard. So, at level 4, we also get our ultimate, which is probably one of the better ultimates in the game for all warriors. You immediately restore all of your AP and movement points, and then you also get additional movement points based on your agility bonus. And then whenever you attack somebody, you can keep moving afterwards. And you have no limit on your attacks as long as you have AP. You can combine this with other ultimates or other abilities so you can keep chaining more attacks. It's a pretty sweet ultimate. And as for our first talent, I decided to go with Epicenter of Slaughter. Whenever the warriors attack, they gain 1 stack of Epicenter of Slaughter until end of combat. At the end of the turn, the warrior gains 1 temporary hit point for each stack. These temporary wounds cannot exceed the warrior's toughness bonus. This is going to be relevant later, but it's just a nice pickup just to get. Nothing too crazy. The next talent, however, is a crucial one. Make sure you pick this on whatever tanky warrior you're going to use. It's called Thick Skin. The warrior gains +1 damage to deflection, and their parry chances equal to 25% of their armor. So, typically, as a tanky warrior, you're going to try to be using heavy armor, which has tons of armor and also gives you solid deflection on top of that. Pretty sweet. And then you also increase your agility to 40, just because I like having even numbers, as your bonuses on all your skills is whatever your stat is divided by 10. So now that we have an agility of 40, we have a 4 agility bonus, which will be relevant in a lot of our warrior abilities. And speaking of warrior abilities, we're going to pick up Sworn Enemies. That way we can stand up to those big beefy targets and hopefully deal some solid damage as well. Then we increase our athletics. And then we increase our strength, as well as picking up the talent Dueling Mastery. Another option to pick up pretty early is Combat Master. As long as you get this pretty early, that's all that matters. As enemies can no longer gain melee superiority against the target, and what that means is when there are more allies than enemies on the target, they'll receive extra weapon skill for each ally. And if Abelard is your only frontliner, he's going to tend to get surrounded once all the enemies start swarming him, and they'll get melee superiority and potentially murder him. So getting Combat Master pretty early is a really good idea. But I decided to go with Dueling Mastery for just a flat 50% bonus, and we'll pick up Combat Master in a little bit. Then I decided to increase Carouse, which will help reduce negative effects such as poisons and the bad sides of stimulants. If you use stimulants, I probably should, I don't tend to use them, as I always forget about them, but Carouse is a very good skill to use. And then we pick up the talent Prepared for Pain. This is an amazing tanking talent, as the warrior will gain bonus toughness, bonus damage to deflection. So, against the first attack made against an enemy this turn. And it's by every enemy as well. So each enemy tends to only have 1 or 2 attacks, so at least you'll be able to get extra deflection against that target. And then early on, we'll have a toughness of 50. So that would be a toughness bonus of 5, so we'll always have an additional +5 deflection to what we already have here as 2. It's because of the armor and our thick skin talent. And deflection determines the amount of damage deducted whenever an enemy hits the character, and then it will use your armor for whatever's remaining. This is an amazing stat to pump up, and you're always going to prioritize deflection, and then armor. And then as for our upgraded ultimate, the first option I decided to upgrade first was upgrade number 3. This will make it so whenever we attack anybody, we will become their priority target as if we taunted them, If we hit them with our melee attacks, that is. And then the more important part of this feature is until the end of combat, you'll get an additional 20% chance to parry and +2 deflection. This is an amazing thing for tanks, and it's a very good ultimate again. Alright, next, we move on to Hardened Scars. Whenever the warrior is hit while under the Endure effect, their damage deflection is increased by 1 until the warrior's next turn. This isn't an amazing talent, but hey, deflection's still deflection at the end of the day. The more you have, the better you'll tank. And then we increase our strength. And then I decided to opt for Forceful Strike here, just to help with a little bit of crowd control, and I just think it's hilarious knocking all your enemies away and watching them eat shit as they collide into a wall. Great ability, and we'll pick up Taunting Scream later, most likely. And then I decided to pick up Heavy Armor Proficiency since we got to 50 Strength at this point, and about this point in the game, we will be getting close to getting some heavy armor, such as this heavy leather armor. And it makes it kind of look kind of cool. And then eventually you're going to pick up other heavy armors later. Another early armor you can acquire is this Ceramite Stormtrooper Carapace, which you'll acquire from one of your early factions if you get enough reputation with them. Look at that, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Alright, let's get back to his build.
I won't waste my time on that.
Alright, and then speaking of toughness, we'll keep increasing our toughness. And I also decided to put a point of Medicae just to boost our medicine a little bit, even though we already can use our medicine. An option I also decided to opt for was Defensive Stance, since I'm making this character more of a tank than a damage dealer, and I'm also playing on harder difficulties, so this is just a flat bonus to your armor as long as you didn't attack. But charge and slice do not affect this bonus, so you can still charge, get your guy in position, and then just sit there and maybe do some buffs on yourself, and then just sit there. You'll increase your armor by a good amount. And I also decided increasing Carouse. And then we increase our toughness, and then Combat Master. As I mentioned, you want to get that early, so that way you can't get surrounded and destroyed. And then for our second upgrade for the Daring Breach, we decided to go with the second option. Until the end of combat, the warrior gains +4 movement points for each kill, and can use their movement points after attacking to or using abilities. That way you can keep moving around if you get to kill a target. And as mentioned, Abelard will be your main tank, so we're going to go into the Vanguard archetype, which is a very tanky class. And the main feature of the Vanguard is Unyielding Beacon. Each attack against the Vanguard grants them +1 stack to Unyielding Beacon. Each stack increases their resolve by 1, up to a maximum of 15. And then all allies within a 2-cell radius of the Vanguard will receive a fifth of that bonus. And then more importantly here, temporary wounds applied to the Vanguard from any source will stack. They stay stacked until the start of the Vanguard's next turn. And at the start of the turn, the remaining temporary hit points are reduced to the largest amount granted by whichever applied effect. So just the ability to keep stacking on your temporary hit HP from, say, like your officers or whoever's buffing you is a pretty sweet feature. And then there's some other talents that will also feed off this and go and do extra things based on these stacks. The Vanguard abilities, starting off with this first ability, is Defensive Stance. The Vanguard gains 10 plus 2 times the amount of unyielding stacks to your parry until your next turn. And then whenever the Vanguard just successfully parries an attack, they immediately make an attack of opportunity at a -20 weapon skill penalty. So essentially this is a counterattack whenever you parry. It's a pretty sweet ability. It costs 2 AP, but it is totally worth it. Another ability we get eventually is called Wall of Rockcrete. The Vanguard and all of their allies in a 3-cell radius around them gain extra temporary hit points based on their unyielding beacon stacks. And then all affected allies gain a -50% less damage from the next attack. And this effect lasts until the start of the Vanguard next turn. Pretty cool ability to help protect your allies. Then we got Bulwark. Until the end of the next turn, the Vanguard gains damage reduction against ranged attacks, equal to the number of stacks of unyielding beacon on the Vanguard. Additionally, the Vanguard becomes immune to pushed and forced movement until the next turn. Also a decent ability for against ranged targets. If you're able to get their attention from far away, such as using taunt abilities, this can be quite useful. Otherwise, your ranged enemies will tend to shoot people that are not Abelard. Something to consider. And then we got Disposal. The Vanguard forces an enemy to their melee range and immediately attack the Vanguard. And all other allies near the Vanguard, who are wielding melee weapons, and are adjacent to the enemy, make an attack of opportunity. The enemy suffers damage based on your fellowship. And then also has a penalty to their dodge and parry. So that's another thing to realize with the Vanguard, is now not only are your main sources, or not only are your main stats toughness and strength, you also need to start considering fellowship, as a lot of your abilities will and talents go off of fellowship as a Vanguard. Forced Distraction. This is a taunting ability. The Vanguard chooses an ally, and all enemies in the 3-cell radius around this ally must make a willpower test. And on a failed test, the Vanguard becomes their priority target. It's a ranged taunt around, say, like your assassin or whoever else is getting swarmed. Or maybe you put somebody in the right position that way you can get those people's attention. And then regardless of the willpower test results, the ally who does not provoke attack of opportunity from these enemies and can shoot enemies in melee range. And move as if they are not within range of attacks of opportunity. So this is a really good ability to use on somebody like Argenta. Say they get surrounded, that way you can get her out of there, or you can just start blasting people at point blank range. Pretty cool ability. And then Follow My Lead. Until the start of your next turn, the Vanguard gains additional damage based on your fellowship and armor penetration against any enemies within a 2-cell radius of the Vanguard. Additionally, when this ability is cast, all allies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard gain the following ability until the next turn. I've never actually used this ability, so I can't tell you what following does. But apparently if you go look right here, it says the character can move in an adjacent cell to the Vanguard without provoking attack of opportunity. So I guess you could use this to get things ready if you have other melee characters with you. So you'll use Follow My Lead and get all your melee guys prepared for disposal, so that way that you can start making them attack things. And there's another item you can get later that can help you force melee attacks with your other characters. I'll get over that in a minute. But for now, let's go back into the Levin guide for this. The next talent I decided to pick up right away was Renitent Beacon. Each stack of Unyielding Beacon additionally increases your armor and parry. So remember, we have up to 15 stacks, so that means we can get a potential bonus 15% armor and parry based on our Unyielding Beacon stacks. And then next we have the Unyielding Guard Ultimate. Until their next turn, the Vanguard attacks each enemy that attacks the Vanguard's allies in a 3-cell radius. Additionally, until the next turn, the Vanguard always retaliates when attacked. So this is a pretty cool ability, especially if you combo with other things, to get you counterattacks, like say you taunt things or whatnot. So if your friends get attacked, you attack back. If you get attacked, you also attack back. Pretty solid ultimate, but I usually tend to ult up for the warrior version instead. Then we also get an extra bonus action point, which is pretty nice. And then we keep increasing our toughness here. And then we do it again. Next, we're going to pick up Enduring Shield. While the Vanguard has at least one temporary wound, they'll gain bonus parry and armor based off their toughness. A really solid talent. Now we'll pick up our first ability. Pick whichever one you'd like. They're all pretty solid. I feel like Bulwark is okay if you feel like you're going to go against a lot of ranged attackers. I wouldn't really pick this one. I think Disposal and Forced Distraction to be pretty solid. Follow My Lead is good too if you have a lot of melee troops in your team. I typically don't, but let's just do Forceful Distraction in case we need to help protect our squishier targets. And then we'll keep increasing our athletics. Now we got more talents to pick from. Let's go with the counterattack stance. So this is going to enhance our defensive stance. Now has a -10 penalty for attacks of opportunity instead of 20. And then these attacks also deal additional damage based on your toughness. Pretty solid talent to have. Alright, next we will have a general talent to pick from. There's a few different options to pick from here. I will probably pick up Never Dies, but you can pick up skills, you can pick up Grenadier, and hopefully in the main game you'll be able to pick up some of his traits from either his origin or his homeworld. Otherwise, we can just go ahead and pick... Where'd it go? It's called It Will Not Die. I already picked it. This will... Oh, I already picked it at the first level. My mistake. I didn't mention that. So when you first get the first level or second level of Vanguard, you'll pick up It Will Not Die, which increases your wounds by half your character's level, just to give you a lot more HP. So we can opt for a Power Weapon Expert to get more armor penetration. We could decide to get Flame Weapon Proficiency or Plasma. Or we can just do Swift Movements to get some more movement points. Let's just go with that. Alright, so now that our toughness is maxed, we can decide to go with Strength, so we can do a little more damage, or Weapon Skill as well, so we can make sure we hit things, or we can increase our Fellowship. I'm going to just increase our Fellowship by 1 here at least, just to get that Fellowship to 40. I like nice even numbers, and now that we are a Vanguard, our Fellowship matters a bit more. Alright, so since we can't increase our Origin or Homeworld options, let's just go ahead and increase Power Weapon Expert, as a lot of our melee weapons are power weapons. And this just gives us more armor penetration. Alright, next we have another Vanguard talent. There's a lot of things we could choose for. If we want to start opting into the taunting side of things, whenever the Vanguard hits an enemy with an attack of opportunity, that enemy must make a willpower test. On a failed test, the Vanguard becomes the enemy's priority target until the Vanguard's next turn. We can take Taunting Defiance. The Vanguard gains bonus parry to enemies that consider the Vanguard a priority target. Let's go with this one. And next we'll increase our athletics again. And then we will increase our weapon skill, just to make sure our attacks land a bit better. Now we can upgrade our ultimate. There are 4 different options. Till the end of the next turn, the Vanguard cannot die. This is always pretty solid. Till the end of the start of the next turn, all damage suffered by the Vanguard is reduced by your toughness. Pretty cool. I'm going to go with the cannot die option. It just seems most obvious to me. And then after that, you just keep increasing whatever it is you decide to do. Whether it's more taunt for focus-oriented things or stuff to enhance your other abilities. So some more offensive options for the Vanguard would be Beacon of Light. At the start of your Vanguard's turn, before their temporary wounds are lost, the Vanguard you'll gain strength based on how much temporary wounds you have. So this can help increase your damage. Then we also have at Center of Attention. For each enemy that considers Vanguard a priority target, the Vanguard receives more armor. That's always pretty solid to grab. And that's kind of the gist of how you would build Abelard. And once you get into the Exemplar, there are a lot more feats that are really amazing for tanks. I'll just give you a quick sample. Such as Tough as Steel, the character will gain extra wounds, and the wounds are further increased by your toughness, basically increasing your health overall. Then you got Flesh Wounds. At the start of your character's turn, they restore 10% of their max HP. If the character has less than 20% wounds left, they restore 20% of their maximum HP instead. Pretty nice for just free self-heals to help keep you topped off a little bit. Full Attention. Targets that consider the character a priority target deal 40% damage less to the allies of that target, so the Vanguard. And then there's a lot of other abilities just like that of the same kind of caliber. And that's kind of how you want to build Abelard. We can build a different style of tank, which we'll go into a moment.
Heresy grows from idleness.
So if we wanted to be a tanky warrior ourselves as a rogue trader, how would we go about it? Which homeworld will we pick? Well, there's a few pretty solid choices here. My main recommendations will be Death World, Forge World, and Imperial World, and we'll get into those right now. The Death World's main ability, Survival Instinct, is pretty solid. Once per combat, when the wounds of a Death World character drop below 30%, they gain 20% of their maximum wounds as temporary wounds. Pretty solid. And then, more importantly here, which you can kind of see with the combos of the Warrior and Vanguard already, is that they will gain a 20% bonus to dodge and armor when they have at least 1 temporary wound from any source. And you just have straight up abilities to give you free wounds on the beginning of your turn anyway, so this is a no-brainer. Death World Warriors are amazing tanks. And then your talents are pretty solid as well. 2 of these increase your critical hit chance. I don't value those too much because there's a lot of sources of critical hit, and I don't typically waste these 2 talents on them. You can obviously go with it if you want to use them. For example, here, Brutal Hunter, you'll get 15% critical chance against any enemies that are bleeding or at half health or less. This can help you finish them off. And then Trusty Weapons will increase your critical hit chance by 10% if you're using axes, hammers, and laser weapons. That's pretty solid. Axes tend to inflict bleeding, which can combo off of Brutal Hunter. And then you have Wounded Beast, which is what I'm really interested in for this build. The Wounded Beast, every injury increases the Death World's character agility and willpower by 5. So you can kind of use this to cheese out some more agility and willpower on a DPS type build. But the willpower side of things is what I'm more curious about, as we'll get into the origin option for this in a moment. You can kind of get a hint of it by looking at the picture. And then we also have Hellish Life, which will make us take reduced damage from several dot effects or damage over time, such as Flame, Toxic Damage, and Bleeding. And then we have Tenacity, which is a really amazing talent as well. Once per combat, when the Death World character is suffering from the stunned, blinded, or immobilized condition, they ignore it and instead gain a 20% health shield. Pretty sweet to get out of stuns for free, as stuns are awful. Yeah, overall the Death World character is a really good tanky class, and that's what I'm going to be doing for this Rogue Trader build. For your tanky Rogue Trader, that is. And then we'll also move on to the Forge World, which also makes amazing tanks. And you can definitely go this option if you choose. But for the purposes of this build, we're going to go for Death World, but let's showcase what the Forge World does after all. So the Forge World, as you select it, you immediately get to pick between 1 or 3 systems to upgrade. You got your Analytic System, which increases your critical hit chance by your Intellect. This is okay, but not necessarily for our Warrior. Locomotion System, which will increase your movement and your dodge percent based on your agility even further. This is phenomenal for Assassins, and we'll be using this build, and we'll be using this archetype and upgrade, and we'll be using this Homeworld and upgrade option for that build, which is why we're going to go with the Death World for the tank. So yeah, Locomotion System is amazing for Assassins, and we'll get into that in a minute too. And then, if you decide to be a tanky Forge World character, this is the obvious choice for Subskin Armor. Forge World characters will gain bonus to their armor based on their toughness. Pretty sweet. Let's go back to the rest of the options for the Forge World, why it makes a pretty solid character for a tank. Pinnacle of Weaponry makes you a little bit more versatile. You get bonuses to your Plasma, Melta, and Power weapons based on your based on your intelligence, and power weapons tend to be melee, so this is important for us. And then for the remainder of combat, the bonuses decrease to half your intellect bonus. We're not going to have the highest intellect, so I wouldn't really worry about this too much for the most part, but it's still nice to have that option. Then we got Fires of the Forge, which also reduces our damage against burning dots and flame weapons based on our toughness. Pretty nice. And here's the most important reason why you will consider playing a Forge World Warrior. While wearing heavy armor, Forge World characters gain a movement point, 1 deflection, and cannot fall prone. The prone immunity is the most important part here, as prone is probably worse than stuns. I believe that when you fall prone, you receive bonus damage from other targets, and you can't defend yourself. Oh, that's less this. It cannot act and suffers minus 30% penalty to parry and dodge, so it just makes people easier to hit you. Pretty bad. And then we have Persistence of the Forge. Forge World characters gain a stacking 10% bonus to hit chance and dodge reduction against any target they hit with a single target attack. Successful critical hits from a single target attacks increases the hit chance and dodge reduction by 20%. This is a good talent for warriors, but not necessarily for the tanks. This is more suited towards assassins. Then we got calculated relations. Instead of using your fellowship on your fellowship skills, you can use your intelligence. Not too big of a deal, since we're going to have high fellowship anyways if we're going the Vanguard route. And yeah, these are the 2 main warrior homeworlds I believe fit your warrior. There's also Imperial World that also kind of suiting for this build as well, since we'll be going as a warrior priest origin. A lot of xenophobic traits here, but Imperial Worlds are pretty solid, but we're not going to be using that for this video. So for this tanky build, again, we're going to pick the Death World, Homeworld, and then for the origin, we're going to go with the Minisortum Priest. Now, why is that? Well, their ability, War Hymn, grants momentum based on your willpower bonus, and this ability also increases additional willpower momentum for each enemy that is within 5 cells around your priest or anything that was hit by you. So, War Hymn is pretty cool, but it's even better when you enhance it with your talents from your War Priest, such as Litany of Purification. All enemies in an area effect of the War of Hymn gain 1 stack of Disturbed effect, and then enemies that are adjacent to the priest also gain 2 stacks of the Disturbed effect. What is Disturbed? Well, Disturbed is a minus 10 penalty to willpower and fellowship tests. Taunting, for example, is a willpower test, so this will make it so you can taunt things easier. And if they're closer to you, you get minus 20 penalty, which is pretty sweet. Then we also have Shield of Faith. The Minisortum Priest gains a flat armor increase to do demons and warp damage, and then your resolve is also permanently increased based on your willpower. This is a good ability, but we're not going to pick this up until later in the game. And here's a really great ability. Cleansing Faith. Melee, flame, and melta attacks against demons and psychers will deal bonus damage based on your willpower, and also give you armor penetration. And then those same attacks against Xenos deal additional willpower damage and armor penetration. This is awesome, as we're actually going to be investing quite a bit decently into our willpower here. Primarily for this next ability, the Emperor Protects. Minisortum Priest will gain willpower bonus % chance to ignore enemy attack. I know it says willpower here, but I promise you it's willpower bonus. I confirmed with the devs. Now, if you have 100 willpower, that gives you a 10 willpower bonus. That means you have a 10% chance to ignore any attack. And with this build and with our buffs, we'll be able to get that pretty sky high. I probably could say we can get a pretty reliable 20 to 25% chance to just flat out ignore damage. Pretty solid. Then we also have Litany of Hatred. The Minisortum Priests and their allies in an area of effect of Warham will gain damage, increased damage to single shots and attacks of opportunity for a round. So this is really good, especially if you're going to be utilizing the Vanguard abilities to make your allies attack more often. Pretty freaking sweet. So the Warrior Priest is a really good option for a Death World Warrior. Then you can go ahead and pick your triumphs and your archetypes, and then we will pick the Warrior archetype. And then as for our characteristics, we're going to increase 5 points into willpower, 5 points into agility, 5 points into strength, 10 into toughness, and I'll also increase our weapon skill by 5. Actually, no. We'll increase our strength by 5. That way we can get it up to 50 as soon as possible and then start looking into our other stats. This is our result. We'll name ourselves Priest Tank. Alright, just confirm. There we are. We got our Death World. Pick whichever origin and triumph if you desire, and we'll go from there. If you decide to bring Abelard along, you could probably decide to make him a more DPS-oriented version of his tanky build, or you can just flat out skip him, in which case you'll want to increase your athletics. Otherwise, we'll be increasing our Carouse or our Lore Imperium to be a more lore-friendly character here. As you're going to be a War Priest, so that means you're all about the Emperor. In which case, your conviction is going to be leaning towards Imperial. And we'll get into why we want to do that as well. So, let's just, for the sake of things, let's just go with Carouse, just to reduce our chance to get negative effects from poisons and such like that. So, increase our Carouse. Our first talent will be similar to Abelard, but we're not going to grab the Epicenter Slaughter just yet. Actually, that's not true. We're going to grab this first, because this is way more important for us than Abelard, since we always can get at least 1 temporary HP whenever somebody attacks us. And remember, the Death World character will get a 20% bonus to armor and parry whenever they have your temporary wounds. Alright, next we'll pick up Thick Skin, just like Abelard. We'll go ahead and increase our strength to 50, and we're going to forget about it for now. We can pick up Sworn Enemy, Reckless Strike, Forceful Strike, Taunting Scream, and Breakthrough. For the sake of this build, we will be picking up Taunting Scream. We'll probably pick it up next. But let's go ahead and do Reckless Strike. This is going to be a very aggressive tank. Alright, now we're going to increase our Carouse. And then we can decide to increase our toughness until we can't anymore. Alright, so now we have our first feature here. We're going to, now we get our first general feature. We're going to pick up Combat Master to get rid of that melee superiority. Alright, now that our Carouse is maxed, let's go ahead and pick up 1 level of Medicae so that we can use first aid kits. We're going to need them, since we're going to be taking quite a bit of damage, since we're going to have a lot of attention on us. Alright, next we're going to pick up Defensive Maneuvers. No, we're going to pick up Prepared for Pain, which is a flat toughness bonus to our deflection. The first time attack is made by any enemy. Pretty good thing to have. And then just like Abelard's upgrade, we'll be taking the 3rd upgrade here. Alright, we're going to pick up Contempt. Whenever an enemy attacks the warrior's next melee attack against the target will deal additional toughness damage. And then we'll increase our toughness. Now we have a 6 bonus after everything's said and done. Alright, and our next ability we're going to pick up Taunting Scream. Now we have another general feature. We can increase our Dueling Mastery to get 50% to parry. Alright, we can't increase our toughness anymore, and our strength is already at 50, so let's go ahead and start putting stuff into our weapon skill. And then we'll start increasing stuff into Lord Imperial. This ability, Living Shield, is pretty solid against a lot of ranged attackers. Say if you have a bunch of melee people in front of you, you'll just take less hit chance. So this is pretty sweet. Defensive maneuvers can also be good. This is better if we have high dodge, but since we're going to be wearing heavy armor, it's not going to be as useful to us. So instead, let's go ahead and pick up Disarm, actually. Disarm will make it so that we gain extra armor against a target if we're using single attacks. This is pretty important. And then especially if we're getting a lot of counter attacks, this will be great to help just reduce damage all around. Alright, we'll keep improving our Imperium. And then we will pick up more weapon skill. And then lastly, we're going to pick up our heavy armor here. And then we will pick up our second option, just like Abelard. Or we can also decide to pick up Daring Breach. So that way our melee attacks will deal extra damage, but I think the second option is better just to get more movement so we can keep darting around from target to target. Pretty sweet. Alright, before we move on to the Vanguard, let's go ahead and equip our gear. We can compare with Abelard. Alright, so we're going to equip the same armor on both of our characters and see the difference. So we got 55% armor here. We use it on ourselves. Right. It's a little bit different. You can see he has 55% more armor. Is that because of the armor? It is because of the armor. Oops, I equipped the wrong one. There we go. So now we're the same. Obviously, Abelard's a little higher because he has more stats from being Vanguard. And we'll equip the little sword. Alright. Now let's continue on to the Vanguard. Just like Abelard, we'll pick up Defensive Stance. And then, instead of increasing our wounds, we won't do that just yet. We're going to go down to here. We can decide to pick up Wounded Beast, so we can start pumping up our agility and willpower whenever we take damage. That's not too necessary just yet. If you're playing on harder difficulties, Tenacity is without a doubt very important. But I'm going to pick up the Litany of Purification. That way we can land our taunts easier whenever we use our Word of Glory. Sorry, our Warhymn. Alright. And just like Abelard, we'll be picking up Enduring Shield and Renaissance Beacon. Pick whichever one you like better. I'm going to go with Enduring Shield just because we like to stack our temporary wounds a lot. Alright, so now we can start increasing our toughness again. Let's go ahead and do that. Oh, interesting. Alright. I didn't realize the pet chest piece I have increases our fellowship. Let's look into that in a moment. Alright, let's keep increasing our toughness. Alright, and then we'll pick up Renaissance Beacon because we picked up Enduring Shield earlier. And now we can pick up Disposable, or we can pick up Follow My Lead. Same with the Taunting. We'll pick up Force Distraction. Alright, and then we'll increase our Carouse even further. We got Taunting Defiance, Taunting Opportunity. Let's see here. So here's a pretty sweet ability, Punish the Imprudent. We can go ahead and pick this up, or we can pick up Counter Attack Stance. Let's just go ahead and just pick up Punish the Imprudent for now. Once per round, whenever an enemy that considers Vanguard a priority target, so let's say we taunted something from range, they come over to us, we get a free smack on them. Pretty solid. Alright, now we have another general talent. We can increase We can pick up more Minisortum Priest abilities, or we can pick up Wounded Beast here, or we can pick up Tenacity. Both of those two are good options. I'm going to pick up Flensing Faith. Melee and Flame and Melt attacks against all that such will do extra damage. And at this point in the game, we're going to be dealing with some of those targets. Or you can just still hold off on this and wait a bit. And pick up one of your other abilities, like Litany of Hatred to increase your focus damage. Or we can get Emperor Protects. I would probably wouldn't pick up Emperor Protects just yet until you get Wounded Beast, as these two go really well together. Let's go with... I'm actually going to pick up something else entirely. And we're going to pick up Flame Weapon Proficiency. As this will combo in later with Flensing Flame, so we can have melee and flamethrower options available to us. That's only if you want to do that. If you don't have to pick it up. I personally think it's kind of cool. All right, we'll increase our weapon skill. And then we'll come back down. Now we'll pick up Wounded Beast. Or no, we'll pick up Flensing Faith. We'll pick up Flensing Faith since we just got the flames. All right. Pick up Counterattack Stance. Or we can pick up Defensive Comrade. When a Vanguard has at least one ally in the cell, the Vanguard gains bonus to their parry. Protective Ward, all allies get affected by Vanguard's abilities, blah blah blah. We're going to go ahead and pick up Center of Attention since we're going to be taunting a lot of foes, increasing our armor. Alright, we'll go increase our Carouse. And we'll increase our weapon skill to 50. Then we'll take that one. And then as you keep going, you go ahead and pick up your Warrior Priest abilities, or whichever Vanguard ability you desire. If this one in particular right here is an archetype thing, so probably pick one of these taunting abilities, and you can kind of get the gist of it from here. Then eventually we'll start investing into our willpower, and we'll become very tanky. I'll be providing footage of this in the next coming days, probably next week at some time. But for now, I'm just going to be sticking to the guides, just because we're pressed for time a little bit, and I'm not trying to make this a 2-hour-long video. It's going to be pretty long, though. So that's kind of an idea for the War Priest tank. Also, at one point, you're going to pick up Wounded Beast so that we can get more HP. Sorry, it will not die, that we keep getting more HP and such. But eventually, I think that this tank can be a little bit tankier than Abelard. Especially once you get more willpower and all your other War Priest abilities. And I just think it's really suiting to use against a lot of these targets in the later game. You'll be fighting a lot of Xenos and a lot of Demons and Psykers. So that's just something to consider. Alright, so now let's go ahead and move on to Heinrix. So Heinrix, he's a little bit different than Abelard in that he is more destined to become an assassin, which are warriors that are more agile, with high agility, and rely on their dodge instead of heavy armor to avoid attacks. And once you pick up the assassin archetype, you actually get to weaponize that dodge. So let's just read some of the intro stuff from the assassin, and we'll go from there. So we got Seek the Opening. The assassin sees a single opening for each enemy on the target on one of the enemy's sides. And if you're familiar with the game League of Legends and know the champion Fiora, she has a passive that makes a barrier-looking thing on the enemy's backside or something like that. And if you hit that side, you'll do bonus damage. So the same kind of thing is here with Heinrix, or sorry, with an assassin. And after attacking one of these openings, it will be moved to the other side of the enemy, which is really important why we want to pick up abilities that can help us move around and be more agile. And then you can keep just smacking them and do lots of good damage. So you can really destroy bosses with this character pretty well. And then you have a lot of really cool abilities, which we'll go into later. So another thing to also notice, if we look at this ability right here, particularly with lethality. So lethality is a way that you can weaponize your dodge stat. A lot of your abilities will use this lethality stat, and again, weaponizes your dodge. So for example, this ability here called Death Whisper, you will be able to attack a target, although it severely reduce damage, but you put a really nasty bleed dot on them, called Hemorrhage. And it will do damage equal to your lethality rating divided by 10. Rending damage. So, it's a type of physical damage and dealt by anything like Sharp Bladed Blade, blah blah blah. and ignores armor and deflection. So it's just a flat dot based on your lethality bonus. And there's lots of ways to increase our lethality beyond just our dodge rate. So that's something to consider. And let's look into how we would build this warrior as an agility-based warrior. So same kind of thing. You start off with charge and endure. But as for our stats, at least for Heinrix, I like him putting him into coercion, as he is an inquisitor. And then the other thing to note is that while he is suited to become an assassin, he's also a psyker. So we're also going to want to invest in our willpower, not just our agility. And more specifically, he is a Biomancer Psyker, which focuses on heals and debuffs and poisons. So it's a really good archetype for... It's a really good psyker for most archetypes, actually. Anyhow, let's get into it. So when you first get him, he starts off with defensive maneuvers, which is actually really good on an assassin-type character. When the warrior will take damage, they gain a bonus to their dodge based on their agility and stacks up to 3 times and resets after a successful dodge. So this is good to get your dodge rate up so that we take less damage potentially, but also helps increase your damage as an assassin. Alright, now the first ability I like to pick up on him is called Desolation. The warrior will deal additional damage based on their agility if that enemy has no targets. So the other thing about an assassin is they like to dart around and move to those targets that are by themselves and just blow them up. Then next we'll pick up our weapon skill and just upgrade this as most as we can. That way we can increase our critical chance. And then we're also going to increase our agility down the road. Alright, we're going to increase our weapon chance again, our weapon skill again. And then we're going to pick up a common feature from our Psyker category called Blade of Light. Force weapons will deal extra damage based on your psi rating and give you more penetration based on your psi rating. So one thing about Heinrix is that you're always going to prioritize picking up these psi rating perks. You won't be able to get them right away as they each have level requirements, although they're not really consistent on when you can get them. So whenever you see them, you're going to pick these up. And that will ultimately increase most of the damage you do with a lot of your abilities. As a Psyker anyways. Yeah, Blade of Light's pretty sweet, because Heinrix actually comes equipped with a force weapon, and there's a few pretty solid force weapons in the game. Alright, then we keep increasing our coercion, and then we're going to pick up Rigorous Training, but before that I realized I skipped a level. So back here, our first ability we're going to pick up is Breakthrough. And Breakthrough is the ability that gives us Slice, and whenever we can use Slice, it gives us charge based on our agility bonus, and we'll be able to jump around 2 targets, dealing reduced damage, blah blah blah. So the reduced damage isn't that big of an issue, because as long as we can jump around and get to the different sides of the targets, we can proc those assassin openings. And down here, Rigorous Training will make it so that when we use charge and slice, we can still move around. And we also get bonus dodge, which is pretty sweet. But the fact that we can still move around afterwards, that's the more important part, because charge and slice will tend up using up all of your movement abilities. Which sucks. Well, that's just attacks in general, actually. Usually when you have your melee attack, you'll consume the rest of your movement, but that will prevent it if you can use your slice. Really important. And then, unlike the tanks, we're going to pick up the second option for our Daring Breach Ultimate instead, so we can just move around and whatnot. And then our next talent, I decided to pick up the Biomancer Poison ability called Biophysical Distortion. All attacks from the Psyker, including your Psyker powers and also your melee attacks and range attacks, will now poison the target, dealing 4 times your psi rating damage every turn. It's going to start off kind of weak because Heinrix is a regular Psyker, so he starts off with 0 psi rating. And we're going to be picking up psi rating as soon as we can. And then we're going to start increasing our agility now. And we're going to pick up our first Biomancer skill next. So you can pick up your Biomancer skill, or you can decide to go with Reckless Strike, or Forceful Strike, or Sworn Enemy. But I like picking up either Invigorate or Enfeeble. Both of these are great options. Invigorate is a heal, and this heal brings them to full health, this power will also remove all stun, bleeding, fatigue, blinded, immobilized, staggering, and fresh injury from the target. So this is a great healing ability, and it only gets better the stronger Heinrix gets with the psi rating. And then Enfeeble is also a really good ability too. It's a debuff in an AoE, and will reduce all targets' strength and agility based on your psi rating, and it'll also increase the damage they take too. So this is a really good debuff. It's actually fantastic. And it combos with some other stuff you can get with your Biomancer as well. And then we move on and get our psi rating 1. So now we can start doing some actual damage with our poison and also heal a little bit extra. Then next we'll keep increasing our agility, and we'll pick up Medicae as well, at least 1 point, so we can start using medkits. Now here's an example of an ability that you can pick up from your Biomancer specifically. You can pick up Pulse of Life. Whenever the Psyker heals themselves or another character with a power and effect applied by a Psyker power, this healing can critically hit. And then the chance is equal to your critical value. And also gets benefits from critical damage. So you don't have to pick this up right now. I just did because I was just testing it out. There's a lot of really good options here. Adrenaline Surge is pretty good. On the first turn of every combat, all Psyker powers from the Biomancy discipline will cost -1 action point. So whether you use the heal or our buff that we get by just being a Biomancer called Iron Arm will increase our strength and toughness until into combat. And it increases based on your psi rating. So this is a really good ability to use right away on your character, whether it's on Heinrix or your tank or whoever. You can also use a heal right away too, or you can also use your debuffing spell. Let's go back down here. And then another talent that combos pretty well with the Enfeeble, again, which is this damage, it lowers their strength and agility and also increases the damage they take. So if we go over here, we got Twist Flesh. Whenever an effect applied by the Psyker increases damage suffered by a target, effect is increased by half. For example, a 20% increase turns into 30%. And if you have a 100% increase, that will increase it by an additional 50. Granted, your Enfeeble won't be that high, but it still can be quite relevant, as it'll increase right away. So with this Psyker rating of 2, we'll increase their incoming damage by 3 plus 2 times your psi rating, which is 4 plus 3, so 7% increase to all damage. The more psi rating you get, the more powerful this will be. But it's still nice to be able to just do that for free on the beginning of your turn to AoE. But anyways, that's a bunch of other stuff. You can decide whether you want or not to take it. There's some other pretty good abilities here as well, but we're not going to take this just yet. I decided to increase our Medicae, just make him a little better with his medkits, or I decided to increase our Warp Lore. And now we'll start increasing our willpower, and we can always do that since we're a Psyker. And then I was able to unlock my psi rating 2, and I decided to pick that up then. So again, if you see your psi rating, pick that up immediately. And then lastly, you should be picking up your first option for the Daring Breach. I don't know why I took that on him. I should have a misclick. But take the first option for Heinrix or any assassin for that matter, as this will increase a plus 10 movement points until the end of turn. The warrior does not provoke attacks of opportunity, so that we can dart around and hit who you want to hit. Alright, so now let's go ahead and pick up our assassin. Start off with Seek the Opening, as we went over before. Now we'll pick up our first ability from the assassin. You can also decide to pick up Regeneration as well, or Warp Speed, since now we have Psi Rating 2, and we picked up one of these first abilities, People Invigorate. So, Regeneration is pretty cool. It costs 2 AP, however, but until the end of combat, you'll be constantly healed based on your Psi Rating and willpower bonus, divided by 2. So as you see here, we have a 2 PR and a 6 willpower bonus. So that's a 8 divided by 2, so that's 4 HP at the beginning of each turn, and we'll also remove one of these effects. And if you have multiple of these abilities, or multiple of these effects, it will select randomly. So if you want to really invest in a character with high willpower, you would want to get a Biomancer and pick up Regeneration. It's not too valuable on Heinrix, since we're not going to have the highest willpower, since we're going to be leaning a lot to agility and being more of a Gishy assassin, meaning a spellcaster assassin. But Regeneration is a decent option to pick nonetheless. Then there's also Warp Speed. Until the end of combat, the target ally increases their movement points by their psi rating and their agility by their psi rating as well, and then also get a bonus to AP. And I believe you can cast this on yourself. It costs 2 AP, however, so be careful with that. So right now with our psi rating of 2, that means we get 5 movement points, 5 more agility, and our AP increased by 1. So that's just a pretty solid buff. Decent ability, but you don't need to pick it up right now, because there's a lot of really juicy assassin abilities. So with Death Whisper, we already went over, you get a free attack, and you do only a little bit of damage, but the main portion here is that we make it so our targets bleed. Then there's also Elusive Shadow, which is an amazing ability. It's basically a stealth mechanic. The assassin can move through enemies, and then you also gain additional dodge and perception based on your agility. Sorry, you get extra dodge based on your agility or dodge penetration on your perception. That's more meant for snipers, so we don't really care about that. And then the Psyker attacks also just straight up deal 10% additional damage. Then half cover provides an extra 50% cover efficiency. So this is really cool because it also makes it so your enemies make it so this assassin has the lowest priority. So like I said, it's like a stealth ability. And there's some other stuff we can combo with it later. Poised to Strike is a pretty solid ability as well. It makes the target suffer armor reduction and also a penalty to their deflection. If there's only one enemy adjacent to them, the assassin also increases your dodge. So basically you'll be increasing your lethality on them. And then if there are no enemies adjacent to the assassin, you also can reduce. And so this is for the sniper side of things. So really you only care about the agility side. Danse Macabre is a really great ability. It's a movement ability, and you slash things as you dart through them. This helps you also get towards your openings. It makes it so you deal dash in a straight line for up to a few cells based on your agility bonus. And then also makes it so you take less damage from attacks of opportunity, and also increases your dodge. And then if the assassin hasn't dashed through any enemies at the end of the turn, you'll gain bonus to perception and intelligence bonus. So this is more for snipers. And it won't stack with itself. And then after the first use, this assassin can use it again. So you can dash through people or to get around them to get your openings. Then we have Killing Edge. The assassin attacks for 40% dodge to the target of this attack. If the attack hits, it deals additional damage based on your lethality, divided by 7, rounded down. If the attack hits an opening, its additional damage is increased by your lethality's percent. So this is a really cool ability to do some big damage. Then we got Fainting Attack. The assassin's next single attack will have a 50% armor penetration penalty with a minimum of 0 armor penetration and plus 10 lethality. If it's a melee attack, this is more important to us since we're a melee assassin, it will rotate your target. So this basically makes it so that you can hit your target's opening and turn them around and get the other opening immediately after. Pretty sweet. So I guess typically what you would do is you use Fainting Attack and then attack with your regular melee hit and then hit him with a Death Whisper right after, since you'll be able to hit their opening again and then just put a nice big bleed. So yeah, really good abilities here. It's really difficult to discern which one you want to pick up first. They're all pretty good. I like Elusive Shadow. I like Danse Macabre. They're all really great. Let's just go with Danse Macabre, just so we can have a little bit extra movement and get around the battlefield a little easier and also hit those openings. Alright, so now we get into the Assassin talents. There's a lot of good choices here. Alright, so our first talent I think we should opt for is getting Killing Spree. Whenever the Assassin hits an opening, the Assassin's damage is increased by your agility bonus divided by 2% until the end of combat, and it will stack. So if we keep trying to focus on hitting those openings, we'll just increase our damage by quite a bit. Currently, we only have an agility bonus of 5, but we'll be getting that to 60, or to 6 pretty shortly. So that means we get 3% stacking damage bonus. It's pretty nice. And then the more agility we have, the stronger this will be. And speaking of, we're going ahead and increase our agility. So we picked up Danse Macabre. Let's go ahead and enhance it further by picking up Morbid Pirouette. Danse Macabre deals additional agility direct damage. And direct damage is essentially true damage, which will hit them regardless of their dodge chance, and will go right through their armor. It's just pure damage, can't be prevented by any means. So Morbid Pirouette is pretty solid. And we'll keep increasing agility. Alright, and now as for our abilities, we can keep increasing our Lore Warp, or we can go towards Coercion from our previous talents from being a warrior. Let's just go ahead and do Lore Warp. Alright, now we get to pick up another ability. So we can pick up Killing Spree, or Killing Edge, we can pick up Poised Strike, we can pick up Elusive Shadow, Death Whisper, Fainting Attack. These are all great choices. I'll probably do Elusive Shadow, just to make it so that Heinrix can keep doing his thing, and combo with his other abilities that make it so when he's by himself, or when he's attacking a target that's by themselves, you can go ahead and use Elusive Shadow. Then we have this ability, Lone Killer, which is pretty decent. As long as you have no allies in a 5-cell radius, so that way you're far away, you'll get an extra dodge bonus, but 5 cells is quite a distance. And then 10% dodge may or may not be completely effective. So mortally effective we'll probably pick up later, because we might not be able to get that 100 lethality. But this is a great talent. Whenever the assassin hits a target with an attack that has 100 lethality or greater for the first time in a round, the assassin immediately regains the AP spent for the attack. So this is pretty good if you hit a target with like a really strong attack that usually is like 2 or 3 AP or more. I don't think there's anything beyond 3. I don't even think I've seen 3, but at least 2 you'll get that back, which should be really good. Seize the advantage is pretty good, especially if you're comboing with other people that are using slow and immobilize effects, or you hit them with your hemorrhage. But we don't have our Death Whisper yet, so we probably won't grab this just yet. But once we do, we'll probably pick this up. Since we picked up Elusive Shadow, we can definitely pick up Elusive Speed. This will help us get a lot more movement points and also increase our lethality after we use Elusive Speed. Pretty good. So now that we maxed out our agility at the moment, let's go ahead and increase either our weapon skill, or we can increase our willpower. Let's go ahead and do our weapon skill. Then we can go ahead and pick up Nimble from our general talent to increase our dodge. But before we do that, let's check to see if we can pick up our psi rating. We cannot. Yeah, so we'll just pick up Nimble for that extra dodge chance. So we'll go ahead and pick up this Create an Opening ability. So whenever an enemy suffers a critical hit from one of the assassin skills, at the start of the assassin's turn, a new opening is created on that enemy on which side is closest to the assassin. So this is pretty good if you use gets attack of opportunities on them and you crits on them and then you can return again, or say you just finished your assassin's turn and that was your last hit, you just crit on them, they'll be able to make an opening immediately, and then you can use your officer to give them another turn, and that way they can just keep on going. Or if you don't feel like you're not going to be close enough to your officer to be able to really benefit off of that, to get those extra turns, you can go ahead and pick up Deadly Calculation, so every 10 damage dealt by the assassin's attack, they all also deal direct damage. Or we can pick up Imminent Demise. Whenever the assassin deals direct damage to an enemy, the enemy suffers 1 stack of the vulnerable effect. And it basically means they'll take more damage from your attacks. So we'll pick up Imminent Demise after we pick up Deadly Calculation. So we'll just do that, nice and easy. Then we'll go ahead and creep our weapon skill, and keep improving our warp. Now we get to pick upgrades to our assassin ultimate. Oh, I forgot to look at this. Alright, Dispatch. The assassin makes an attack with the current weapon against the enemy. This attack cannot miss and deals 50% more damage. It also deals additional damage equal to 25% of the target's missing wounds. So you can really use this to eliminate a target. And then the assassin's dodge reduction, armor penetration, and parry reduction are doubled for this attack. So this is going to help you murder that target. Alright, so let's look at our upgrades. Until the end of combat, the target of the Dispatch loses half its current armor and deflection. This is really good against really tanky targets or bosses. Dispatch deals an additional 50 damage equal to 45% of the target's missing wounds instead of 25, so it just makes them even killier. Then we got the upgrade 3. Until the end of the combat, whenever the assassin hits an opening, they gain plus lethality bonus temporary wounds. This can be useful to help you survive a little bit. Then we got upgrade 4. If the dispatch attack kills the target, all enemies within a 3-cell radius around the target gain the disturbed effect similar to the War Priest. And then it must make an agility check or become staggered. Staggered, character suffers -22 weapon skill, strength, toughness, and ballistic skill. Pretty decent. And agility chest as well. I'm not sure which one is probably the best. This is probably the first option. If you don't feel like you're going to kill the target, at least you can really make them weaker. And it lasts until the end of combat, so that's pretty important. So if you feel like they're not going to be able to kill the target, pick up this one. If you really want to make sure that target dies, the second option is probably better, but let's just go with the first one. Play it safe. Go ahead and apply those selections. And then moving forward, you want to obviously keep increasing your psi rating if you want to keep increasing the Psyker side of your Heinrix. We can do some other shenanigans too. There's a lot of really good choices here. We'll probably pick up the lethality heightens. When the assassin deals 5 or more direct damage to an enemy in a single attack, the assassin gains lethality until end of combat, so that's really important. We'll probably pick up Imminent Demise. Whenever the target deals... Yeah, this makes us more vulnerable, so that's going to be a very important pickup. And then there's just a lot of really good things. So you can kind of get an idea of how you want to build your assassin. So one thing to note as well, as we decide to make a assassin rogue trader, the last companion you're going to get in the game is an assassin, and he's pretty damn good at it. So that's just up to you if you want to just be a party full of just murdery, stabby people. But anyways, let's get into our rogue trader build now. But what if we want to play the assassin on our main character, on our rogue trader? How would we go about that? So since we already kind of went over which makes some good warriors from a rogue trader's perspective, at least from Homeworlds and Origins. Well, actually, we didn't go over the Origins, but let's go over... so we already went over the Homeworlds. We're going to be using a Forge World warrior here. We gotta pick a better picture. Let's go with this one. It's pretty decent, I guess. For our voice, let's go with the Pragmatic.
I always get the job done.
Or we can go with the Madman, or Madwoman. They're both pretty good, but we'll just go with the Pragmatic for now. But the Madwoman could be a really good choice here. Alright, so we're going to be picking the Forge World. We'll be picking up Locomotion System for that extra movement and dodge percent. And then, what I believe to be the best Assassin Warrior is the Crime Lord for Surefire Plan. This is an amazing talent that can be very versatile and fits amazingly with our Assassin. So this creates plus intelligence bonus stacks of Surefire Plan at the start of turn, or start of combat. And then you can activate this ability to consume one of those stacks, and then it will enhance the next action you make. If you move, you'll gain bonus to dodge and parry until the start of your next turn, based on your perception bonus. Don't worry about that, because there's going to be other things we can do to enhance it. The more important one is if you do an attack, you'll also increase your damage. Really good ability. And there's also another one too here. If you use a non-damaging ability on the target, say like a debuff, they'll suffer penalty to damage. So this is really good for reducing the damage from bosses. But mostly the movement and the damage are what we care about. And then, more importantly, the talents to enhance your Surefire Plan are as follows. So we got Killing Plan, which will deal bonus damage based on your weapon skill bonus, which is very important to us. And then if you kill an enemy with a stack, or if you kill an enemy, you'll get a stack back. Awesome. Then we got Escape Plan. The bonus to your dodge and parry is also enhanced by your agility. Again, we'll be doing that. And if you dodge or parry an attack, you also get a stack of Surefire Plan back. Awesome. Then we got Disorienting Plan. Any enemy suffered, or any enemy affected by a Surefire Plan, so if you debuff them, you'll also reduce their dodge and reduction based on your perception. That's okay. We don't necessarily need that one. Contingency Plan. This is pretty decent if you don't feel like you burned through all of your stacks really early. If you start a turn and you didn't kill anybody or anything like that, you can get a stack back. And then this is what I also think is really good as a get out of jail free card is the last plan. Once per combat, if the Crime Lord has at least one stack of Surefire Plan, they do not die from lethal damage. Instead, they will heal 5 times whatever their stacked percentage of their maximum health, and then lose all stacks and can no longer gain Surefire Plan stacks. So this could be really solid to help you survive at least one fatal blow. Really good origin for this character. Alright, and then you can just pick whatever you want for this. For archetype, we're obviously going to pick Warrior. And now, let's choose our stats. So again, I always like to keep my things even. Let's make our perception 40. Actually, no, we're not even going to bother perception at all. Who cares about it? Toughness, whatever. We don't care about that. Alright, so we got a weapon skill to 40. Or increase our agility, because that's important. You know what? No, let's go ahead and increase our intelligence to 45. We'll make it at 50, and we're going to leave it at that for quite a bit. You know what? Let's go ahead and increase our perception as well, and just forget about it. This will help our awareness and such, and also help a little bit of our stuff from our Surefire Plan. That one extra bonus is pretty nice. And then we're going to be primarily increasing our agility and our weapon skill. Alright, and we'll name this Crime Lord Assassin. So let's build our Assassin Rogue Trader. For your options here, for your skill increments, since we have a decent amount of intelligence, we can pick up your awareness, or you can pick up athletics again. But if you're going to be playing an assassin, you're probably going to have Abelard with you, so you're going to ignore athletics. You can pick up Medicaid later. You can pick up Carouse. We're going to have high agility, so Demolition could be a good pick, but usually Argento takes care of that. But for the sake of this, let's just increase our awareness, because none of your companions really touch that. So we'll do awareness for now. And our first level, we're going to pick up Desolation. Warrior deals additional damage based on agility to targets that have no allies in adjacent cells. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and pick up some maneuvers just to help increase our survivability a little bit. And we're going to increase our intelligence. Oh, we can't. We'll increase that later then. Because the Crime Lord can increase perception, but not intelligence. We'll increase that when we hit Assassin. For now, let's go ahead and start increasing our agility. And then we'll pick up Breakthrough as well. Just to get our Slice online early. Keep pumping up our awareness and our agility. And then for our first ability, let's go ahead and pick up Killing Plan. That way we can start getting our Surefire plans back and also get extra damage based on our weapon skill. Can't increase awareness anymore, so we'll put a point in Medicaid so we can heal ourselves. Pick Contempt, but we don't have much toughness, so I'm not too worried about that. And Rage can be good to increase your critical hit chance, and it also gives you a bonus to agility. Epicenter Slaughter is not too important for us. Impetus is pretty decent, as we can increase our charge damage by our strength and toughness. Not too crazy. Since we picked up the Breakthrough, let's go ahead and pick up Rigorous Training, so that we can still move around and get our dodge up a little bit whenever we use Slice. And then we'll pick up the second upgrade option, as usual, for Daring Breach. And we'll be picking up... Where is it? Alright, we'll pick up Blade Flurry, so that we can get +1 damage each time we use Slice. And if we can move it around properly, we can hit multiple targets. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and increase our weapon skill. And our next ability. So we can pick up Reckless Strike if we desire. We can pick Forceful Strike if we want to try to knock things down. Or we can take up Sworn Enemy. Sadly, we don't have a lot of toughness or strength bonus to really make use of this. We'll be increasing our strength later, and we can also increase our toughness if we desire. But Sworn Enemy, I think we're going to have so much damage, I think it's just overkill. I don't think we're going to need it. Reckless Strike can also be good to help deal some solid damage in an AoE, and help really get rid of a target. Forceful Strike's good if we want to add a little bit of crowd control and knock things down. But I think, let's go with Reckless Strike, so we can get a nice one big hit in case we really need it. As for our next talent, let's go back down over to Escape Plan. Yeah, we'll go be picking up Escape Plan. Eventually, we're gonna decide to pick up Pinnacle of Weaponry as well, since we'll be using power weapons as this assassin. And then maybe we might decide to pick up plasma stuff too, in case we need a ranged option, or even Melta weapons. All right, and then we'll increase our weapon skill. And then we'll pick up either Carouse, Athletics, Coercion, whatever you feel here. It doesn't really matter too much. I'm just going to keep increasing our Medicaid anyways. Now let's increase our Demolition just in case Argento messes up. Alright, our next ability here. Let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and pick up Open Engagement. If there are no enemies adjacent to the warrior at the start of the turn, the warrior's damage is increased by your strength bonus, 2 times your strength bonus for 1 melee attack. And we'll be getting our strength up in a bit. Alright, go ahead and pick up your Demolition stat. And then, so now our weapon skill and our agility is maxed. So we can go ahead and pick up strength. And then our next talent, we can go ahead and pick up the Combat Mastery, because maybe that might be useful. I don't think it's going to be that important, because we're going to pick up things like Elusive later. So you can pick this up as a safety net. Nimble will be always good, just get that more dodge bonus. You can decide to pick up Plasma Weaponry proficiency, that way you can have a little bit of versatility, and then pick up that other Forge World talent later. Or you can enhance one of your stats, or you can pick up Contingency Plan if you feel like you're running out of your stacks early, or you can pick up the last plan to make sure you don't die one time. This might be more important on harder playthroughs, but I think for the purpose of this build, let's just make a little bit of versatility, and let's just pick up the Plasma Weapon proficiency. Otherwise, you pick up Nimble, or you pick up Swift Movements to move around quicker. Now, speaking of moving around quicker, let's go ahead and get the first option for our Daring Breach. Alright, so that is our warrior side of things. Now we can start delving into a bit of the assassin. And by assassin, I meant assassin. Alright, so let's go ahead and pick up... Let's go ahead and pick up Death Whisper, just to be a little bit different from Heinrix. And we can pick up Dance Macabre or Elusive Shadow later. Alright, and then really just pick whatever thing you want to go with. There's a lot of really great options here. Lone Killer is decent, since we have all those other things that will enhance our abilities when we're by ourselves. Alright, so since we just picked up Death Whisper right away, let's go ahead and pick up Carmine Whisper, which will give us an additional 10 damage to our Hemorrhage. I'm not sure if that applies to damage per tick, but we'll find out. In my next video, I'll actually showcase the Assassin in action. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and increase our agility. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and round up our intelligence to 50. And then we'll go back to agility. Alright. Alright, we'll pick up Deadly Calculation for every 10 damage dealt by an assassin's attack. That attack will also deal direct damage. We'll increase our agility here. And increase our awareness. Alright, so now we have Death Whisper. We could pick up Dance Macabre. We could pick up Elusive Shadow. Killing Edge. Whichever we feel is important to us. They're all really good choices here. Nothing's bad here. Let's go with Elusive Shadow just to help us out with our survivability. And speaking of Elusive Shadow, let's go ahead and grab the Elusive Speed so we can get dart around quicker. Alright, increase our agility. And we can pick up Swift Movements, we can pick up Nimble, or we can pick up Pinnacle of Weaponry. So whenever we attack with powered weapons or plasma, we get extra damage. Pretty solid. Then we do create a opening. Notable. Professional Acumen's good, but we don't really have enough abilities yet that really warrant needing to make it 0. Perhaps Elusive Shadow would be good too. Maybe that actually is a good point, just to be able to keep casting that. Does anything cost 2? No, everything's free. Or 1, so everything would be free anyways. Okay. Let's go ahead and pick up Killing Spree. So we'll be hitting all those openings. Alright. And we'll go ahead and increase our weapon skill. And we'll keep increasing our awareness. And then... let's just be super killy and we're just going to go ham. Yeah, let's just go ham and just do extra damage on our dispatch. Yeah, so you can kind of get an idea of how synergize, just by looking at some of the talents, you can see the synergies with the Assassin. And there definitely will be a follow-up build for this Assassin coming in the next week or so, depending on how busy I am. But yeah, so those are 4 different builds for your warriors. Warriors are a really cool class, but you got to make sure you don't take too many talents that overlap each other. And my next warrior build I'll showcase as well. It's going to be in combination with the Noble Officer, and it's going to make Abelard a much killier Vanguard character. So he'll be tanky, but he'll also be more damage-oriented, using things like Reckless Strike and sweeping attacks. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, and that's the guide. I really hope you learned something here, or maybe got an idea of how you might want to build your warrior in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like more guides like these, and share it so others can enjoy this knowledge as well. Or you can also leave a comment down below and tell me how you would build your tank or assassin, or how you would prefer to build your warriors. It's all up to you at the end of the day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next guide. Farewell for now.